Welcome to the Building Design Primetime Podcast, focused on providing valuable information for anyone looking to undertake a new build or extension project. We'll share our tips, tricks and stories from a building designer's perspective.
Welcome to the Building Design Primetime Podcast. I'm your host, Amelia, and once again we're joined by Frank Geskis.
G'day, Amelia.
How's it going?
Going really well. Looking forward to the weekend.
Oh, it's a long weekend.
Yes, everyone loves that.
And we got our mid-year party tonight.
Yes, we have a celebration in the middle of the year because we can.
And we're dressing up for it.
Yeah,
how cool is that?
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Doing a murder mystery. So there should be a lot of fun.
I wonder who's going to die.
Oh, you won't know until the night, will you?
And who's the killer?
Yeah. This will be interesting.
It'll be very interesting.
If you guys have never done one, do one with your friends. They're hilarious. They're so much fun.
Yes, we'll have to take some photos and upload them to social media.
I think so.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Some aren't going to look pretty with some of the costumes, but anyway, that's life.
I think my costume will be okay.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Well, my character is, a British aristocrat, so I'll dress for that.
I'm a professional dancer, which is hilarious.
That concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, it could be a bit ugly, that.
What, the costume or the dance moves?
Probably both. Anyway, let's move on to the podcast.
Let's move on to our topic for today. I actually wanted to share a bit of a story. So Currently, I have a grandmother who's 95 years old.
That is a great innings so far.
She's basically bionic now. She had a pacemaker put in last year, and she's a bit of a weapon. She just keeps on going. And after my grandfather passed away about 4 years ago, we decided that, the family would take care of her. And so what she does is she spends a month at a time moving around the family. So she'll spend a month with mum and dad, and then a month with my auntie and uncle, and then another month with my other auntie and uncle. And she is living her best life because she gets to see all of the grandchildren all the time, the great-grandchildren, and actually really got me thinking about, multi-generational homes and how, potentially they're becoming more and more popular in today's society.
Popular, I also think necessity.
I think you're probably right there.
Yeah, I found some interesting stats from a study from the University of New South Wales, and on average around Australia, it is 1 in 5 households are multi-generational, and I was a bit stunned at that.
Wow.
So, and I presume that means, the adult kids are still living at home, or the parents have moved in, or whatever, that type of arrangement. But we're starting to see an increase in kids home, bring the parents to live in there, but their kids may have to stay in there longer, so you might have 3 generations in the house.
Yes.
The whole granny flat, we've spoken about that, which is still a wonderful idea. What we're going to talk about is a single building. So the granny flat, which is, I call the whole site multi-generational.
Yes.
Because you may have a granny flat out the back, the grandparents can be in there, or I've seen, young adults being in there as well, or teenage retreat, whatever you want to call it. So then you've got multi-generations on there. The challenges we're finding going forward is that planning schemes and the government legislation isn't keeping up with this. So it was interesting, they said in this study, in Sydney it's greater, it's like 1 in 4.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't think there's any problem, from a legislative point of view, people moving in, it's all family. But it's when you actually got to build dedicated spaces. So there's lots of advantages with it, but purely because of the cost, pure cost. We've been banging on about, everyone talks about cost of living and all the rest of it, but the house affordability. Now, you think of Sydney. Sydney's one of the most expensive cities in the world. It's extraordinary where that's heading. So they have to be multi-generational. So the cost of living, house affordability, you can consolidate a lot of things. Then Australia's population is ageing really fast. I believe Tasmania's got the oldest population on average.
Really?
Yeah. Then there's an increased need for home-based care. This is the other advantage of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Home-based care for the elderly, and where they can be at home longer if you design it right, which I think is really important. And also culturally and family values, being closeness. Because all teenagers like to copy their parents in values and stuff.
Yes.
Not. They watch too much stuff online and get their own opinions and, And they've got to, go through their life and work all this stuff themselves like we all have had to. But culture and family can be great because the grandparents can look after, you've got young kids, they can help look after them, they're part of their lives too. And hopefully the relationship's really cool, whether it's your father-in-law or mother-in-law, depending if you've got a good relationship with them.
Yes.
You marry your partner, you marry their family.
You do, yeah.
For better or for worse.
Very true.
At times.
Yes.
So sharing resources like childcare is great, cooking, power, all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of benefits for this. But from our perspective as building designers, there can be some real challenges with that. Now, we've spoken about granny flats.
Yes.
And I think most states have got the same thing. Basically, you can build up to 60 square metres and that's your granny flat. In Tassie, we can use it for other purposes as well. Not necessarily for granny, but for other purposes, for teens. Granny or grandpa or both pass away and you're left with this building, you can actually rent them out.
Yes.
So it's pretty flexible. But when you do it inside a house, like it's one roof and it's separate, they have their own space. Some of the planning schemes allow us to have bigger than 60 square metres.
Okay.
In some places. In others, they are steadfast. They call it as an ancillary. Has to be 60 square metres or it's called multi-residential. Even though they're sharing laundries, sharing garage, sharing a lot of space, they have this bloody mindedness within the scheme, and it's only the rules that have been given to work to, but it still gives me the willies. The intent is to have grandparents in there. I've got one at the moment, we're in a bit of a battle, and it's exactly that argument. No, it's multi-residential, unless you get it down to this size, and we're just fighting a tough battle there. Other councils, municipalities, no problem.
Really?
Yep. Once it's all under one roof, because you're not putting a full kitchen in, you put a kitchenette in.
Yes.
You're sharing the laundry, you're sharing the garage space, you're sharing the storage facilities, all that type of stuff.
Yes.
You can walk from one side to the other, pop in, say good day, how's it going? And no doubt they'll probably have more shared meals than not.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the planning schemes need to be adjusted for that. And that's a bit of a downside to it. Other challenges you'll find is everyone lives in a house differently, right?
Yeah.
When I was younger, I liked to play my music loud, much to my parents' disgust.
Your elderly grandparents might not like that.
Oh, no, unless they're deaf, but that's okay.
Maybe.
But also it's living together, and then you can look at soundproofing between entries, the kitchens, the showers, depending what backs onto each other. But also when friends come over, kids come over, other parents, they want to have their own dinner parties, all that type of stuff. You've got to consider these things as well. Do you have a separate outdoor area? Do you do landscaping to separate? Parking is a big one.
That is a big one.
Most households appear to have 2 cars.
Yes.
Your grandparents have a car.
Yes.
Maybe 1, maybe 2. Kids get old enough.
They have cars.
Each one of them.
Yes.
Don't live in a cul-de-sac. I've got family in a cul-de-sac and they've got 5 kids and there's cars everywhere. It drives
Oh,
the
my
neighbours
goodness.
nuts. No one can get a wheelie bin out for Garbo Day. It's hopeless.
Oh, dear.
But you've got to look at these things in all seriousness. The parking is really serious. Even though there's not a requirement under the schemes that I've seen, you need to really consider where all these cars are going to go. So that's usually overlooked. And if you're designing it or you're renovating, if you're going to have the grandparents in there, make it fully accessible. Use the Livability Housing Australia standards so they can live there longer.
Wider passageways, handrails.
No big lips at the door. It's just nice, smooth transition. No different grades in floor coverings greater than 5 millimetres. Bathroom, you can bolt stuff to the walls. Easy. And here's one. You're going to get an ambulance call-outs, right? It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Can they get a gurney in and out?
Yes.
Haven't had that experience myself with my dad. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. It's very undignified how to get them out when they're in distress.
Yes.
So that's for us designers to consider all those types of things. So, also for the builder, may not understand the unique requirements, as we were just talking about those.
Yes.
So it has to be well documented. budget.
Yeah, you're going to need a bit more of everything, more cabinetry.
More of everything. It's a
More
bigger
of it,
house.
yeah,
It's just a bigger
yeah.
house. You may have to upgrade your power.
That's true, yeah.
That's not cheap.
Yes.
Who's the legal ownership of the mortgage? And it might be just the parents and then the grandparents contribute. I believe there's some government assistance with how that works as well. If the kids are going to stay there for a long time, how does that work? They marry someone or bring a partner in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Changes the dynamic.
It
How long are they
does.
going to be there? Are they going to pay rent? Are they going to do this? Are they saving up for their own place? Or are they just going to sponge off you?
Yes.
So everyone's got to work that out. So then family dynamics. Who pays for what?
Yeah, is there an agreement in place or...
Who's paying the power? Or someone uses too much hot water? You know, all those types of things, you know. One person's a bit more frugal with the money than someone else, and then, yeah, you need to have agreements. Who does maintenance?
Yes.
Where are the boundaries in so far as who uses what space, the car park we spoke about? You know, who helps out, you know, with parenting, looking over stuff. And I think you've got to set up some pretty clear boundaries and agreements, and that's nothing to do with building design. I think it's just like everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Sounds simple, but how often do we do that with families?
So anything that involves family can get complicated.
Because we're too stupid to even ask the question of clarifying stuff.
Well,
And there's no filter.
there's an emotional involvement there. You know, it's not just business when it's family.
Yeah,
Well, it can be difficult to separate it.
it can be.
Yeah.
But I think it's really good to have that outlined first.
Yeah.
But what about your property value?
Yeah. Does it affect your property value? Will it go up? Is it a benefit?
Is it like a pool?
Is there a demand for it?
I don't know. I reckon there will be. My guess is there will be.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But at the end of the day, it's got to be designed well. It doesn't have to look on the granny flat area. It doesn't have to look like an old age home. Mind you, most old age homes look pretty good nowadays.
Yeah.
The old ones look a bit funky. It has to have a good layout, well designed, and flexibility, because there could be a possibility you could get boarders in to rent out. Because if the grandparents aren't there anymore, what are you going to do with the space?
True.
If the kids are staying long term, well, maybe they move in there. Do you rent it out? Do you get a boarder in?
Yeah,
Good
that's an
possibilities,
option.
because you get
Yeah.
extra income for that.
Yeah.
Airbnb it.
Yes.
Get a license to do that.
Yes.
That's unless you're in Victoria, they're going to tax the crap out of you for it. Have you heard that?
No.
Yeah, they're putting some pretty mean taxes on.
Oh.
Yeah,
gotta
apparently.
hurt.
Yeah, maybe it's future flexibility for home office, home business,
Yes.
which is not a bad thing. Working from home or running your own business, whatever it may be.
Sounds like it definitely allows for more flexibility.
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't actually make for nice design.
No, not always.
Not always, especially if you've got something existing and your limitations of your block. I think there's going to be positives and negatives, and I believe it comes down to the occupants, as we were talking before, about to come up with agreements and how you're going to live harmoniously.
Yes.
The other beauty, and I don't know if people realise this until you've had elderly parents, that you're their backup if there's a medical emergency.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Yeah.
you can race around there rather than racing from the other side of the city when one of their alarms go off.
Yes.
You're there round the corner or through a door, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think so. You can keep an eye on them, I guess, too.
Within reason.
Within reason.
You
Like
know.
they've got their own space, but you're literally just there. So
Yeah.
if something happens, they need help with something.
They need their own privacy.
Yeah.
Everyone needs their own privacy, their own space.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's only fair. And it could build stronger bonds if it's with the family, which is it's great, good relationships, and it's all about building good
Well,
relationships.
that could be seen the other way too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, families are family. It's an interesting dynamic sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Could be a great cost saver
Yeah, that's true.
long term.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the overall things. I especially like the idea of if you can get on with your kids and your kids stay at home. The challenge is when they bring partners in, as long as they're of the same values and all that. And that's tough, you know. Mm-hmm. And if they're saving up to get their own place, which is really commendable.
Yes.
I think that's definitely a wonderful thing if you can assist them to do that, because to be fair, the way things are going, if you're renting and you're trying to save up to get your own place,
Oh, it's tough right now.
The hill keeps getting steeper and steeper.
It does. It really does. My brother, he had to move back from Hobart because he couldn't afford the rents down there are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so he's had to move back in with mum and dad.
Yeah. That's tough.
And that's tough, yeah.
Especially because you've been out and you do your own thing. You end up forming your own habits,
Yes.
good or bad. And that's hard to go back in the family home.
But, I mean, a few of us have done it. You know, I did it myself. I moved back with mum and dad after I moved back from Brisbane. I was living there for almost a year.
Yep.
My sister also did it. She moved back from Burnie. She was working down there and she hadn't built her house yet. Her and her husband had purchased a block of land and,
Yep.
you know, it helped them out. It gave them a starting point.
And this is where we rely on our parents.
We do.
And it's wonderful we can do that. I've done the same with my wife's parents when our house wasn't finished and baby was born. We were supposed to move in. Didn't happen.
Yes.
And our house the rental was gone.
Look, and it gets you out of a bind, you know.
It does. I'm not sure that your friends would help you out as well, but man, it's a massive inconvenience. But parents are a little bit more flexible on that, especially when they're retired.
Yes.
Yeah. So, tips on considerations.
Yes.
So, I believe a separate entry, if you've got the grandparents, they have a separate entry, have a kitchenette and their own bathroom, have their own space.
I agree. Yes.
Use your landscaping for visual and emotional separation, you know. Can do it very tastefully, but it's also times when you get together as well. And I believe this is how you operate, balance between connection and independence.
Yeah.
You know, you probably have a shared laundry. That's probably a really good option to do that.
Yes.
Because there's no need to have two laundries. And that also helps from a planning point of view on how it's perceived the building is used. Because you've got to be really careful, because if you rent these as long terms, that is then considered as multi-residential under the Tasmanian planning scheme. If you do that, you need fire separation, acoustic separation, private open space, parking, separate meters, all this type of stuff.
Yes.
If you keep it under 60 square metres and call a granny flat, that's different.
Okay.
So everyone's got to be aware of that. So the parking is that big one again.
Yeah.
Whether you require parking or not, you do have to consider it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's some great opportunities to do these well, design them well, so then the family can grow up together.
Yes.
And I believe this would be quite normal around the world. Australia is a very unique place. We're multicultural.
Yes.
And we'll live together, but also Australia's got some of the biggest houses in the world. It's not hard to actually do some of this stuff. So, what are our key takeaways?
Do your research.
Talk to a designer, I reckon.
Well, yeah, talk to a designer.
Do you renovate? Do you build to do this? But yeah, that's research. Investigate.
Yes.
Find designers that know how to do this stuff, and you've got to look at that finance and how the money gets distributed into this building.
Yes.
Because say if grandparents move in with kids and they want to, we're going to add a granny flat, we're going to do this, I'll pay for it, no worries. Some of the other family members may not be happy about that because they've just invested in this brother or sister's property in their site.
And not the rest
and
of
it
the
takes
family
out of
members.
the kids' inheritance.
Yes.
And some people get a bit
Shurshy.
because all they think about is the money.
Yes.
I'll leave my opinion on that one.
Yeah,
So that has to be a big consideration. You talk with the whole family. They understand
definitely. Yes.
that. And have agreements. What other takeaways? Make sure it's accessible.
Oh, yes. Accessibility.
Yes, very, very important. And the designers and architects will be able to guide you through this process for building and planning approval. And the financial ownership structure, you're going to need an accountant or a financial advisor for that, or even a lawyer.
Yeah, that's true.
Have agreements within the family.
Yes.
How it's going to work. Don't take it by chance. Have a hard sit down, set some guidelines, boundaries, rules, and then enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Because you want to be at home in a peaceful place with kids growing up, parents doing their thing, grandparents doing their thing.
I agree.
And then I think it's all happy life, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a special thing if you can, surround yourself with family, all get along and live in harmony, I guess.
I find that amazing with your nan.
Yeah.
Moving around to everyone. I reckon that's just so cool.
She loves it. She loves it. I mean, she still has her house and she'll often be there during the day. She won't sleep there on her own. And so that's why the family have taken on looking after her. And it's, it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is very nice. Yeah.
It's not without its challenges, don't get me wrong, but...
That's perfect, and you've got to work your way around this. But even though we've just given our takeaways, there's also another consideration. When you have got kids, some have got special needs,
yes.
Some have other things going on in their lives. And going out in the big, dark world may not be the best option for them.
Exactly.
So allowing to have their own independent space within the house as well. They can live independently, but they have the support. They have the emotional support.
The family support.
Yeah. And designing a space specifically for them.
Oh, exactly.
And then you can still have levels of independence, but also dependency,
Yes.
So that is a big thing. And there's lots of families with that, with kids that have got their own challenges or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're your kids for life.
Oh, exactly. We might wrap it up there, folks. Thanks for listening to the Building Design Primetime Podcast.
Catch us later.
You're listening to the Building Design Primetime Podcast.